the American Assembly in support of Zionism and Israel. These are traditional propaganda spectacles organized by the World Zionist Organization. No expense is spared. The largest concert hall in New York is rented. The Presidium is filled with leaders of Zionist organizations. All the standards of American political advertising are observed. The audience is not only entertained, but also persuaded. Persuaded of the unsurpassed merits of a genuine national idea. It is promoted by the chairman of the executive committee of the World Zionist Organization himself, Leon Summers. Zionism was and remains a revolution without qualification, because Zionism put an end to the state of Jewish homelessness and made the Jewish people masters of their own fate on their own land. Because Jews are pioneers who developed a wild country. Because Zionism strives to create a new society based on the ancient ethical teaching of the prophets, on equality and social justice, and on the later prophets of Western liberalism and democracy. Liberal democratic Europe on the eve of the 20th century, at the beginning of the era of monopolistic imperialism, saw the bourgeoisie searching for new means to fight the revolutionary movement of the working class. It was precisely at this time that Zionism appeared on the political stage, an ideology, a policy, and a practice of the large Jewish bourgeoisie. The year 1897. Representatives of the Jewish bourgeoisie from different countries of the world gathered for the first Congress of the World Zionist Organization. The founding father of Zionism was Theodor Herzl. We must isolate Jewish students and workers from socialism in order to give them instead a genuine national idea. Herzl set out his program in the pamphlet, The Jewish State, and even earlier, in a letter to Rothschild, about how my second cousin began doing this. Around 1880, he gave significant sums, that is true, to help Jews in general emigrate from Western Europe and settle on the land in Palestine. But that ended. All of that ended with the death of my second cousin in 1934. Are two different things. All Jews criticize other Jews for not having given enough to Israel, not having given enough to the Jewish cause, to the Jewish religion, to Jewish social institutions. And this is fair, because there has never been a Jew good enough, and his conscience has never been sufficiently clear. Fortunately, such criticism helps one become more virtuous and makes it possible to receive even if anew. I was born and lived in Jerusalem, where Arabs lived, Muslims and Christians and Jews. By the end of the film, I was raised in a school where Arabs, Muslim Arabs, Christian Arabs, and Jews studied together with me. We all lived in peace with each other. Arabs were stronger than anyone, and so was my family. And the opposite as well, testifies Rachel. Although the mayor of East Jerusalem was expelled by Zionist occupiers after the aggression of 1967, he died in Hollywood. In the Middle Ages, Jews were oppressed and persecuted in Europe. The only refuge ready to accept them were Islamic states, including Palestine and others. They lived under Arab-Muslim rule for 13 centuries in peace. Differences and conflicts arose only with the appearance of international Zionism. British imperialists were the first to decide to use Zionism to strengthen their positions in this strategically important region of the world. Dear Lord, His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will render full assistance in achieving this goal. I would be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the attention of the Zionist organization in London. Film Chronicle, year 1919. A Zionist commission arrived in Palestine, headed by the leader of the World Zionist Organization, Chaim Weizmann. The Commission discussed with the British occupation authorities the issue of accelerating Jewish colonization, since Jews then made up only 7% of the population of Palestine. The principles of Zionist colonization were Jewish land. Land must belong only to Jews. Jewish labor. Jewish production. The goal of colonization, set already by Herzl, was to turn all of Palestine into a Jewish state.
Within Zionist ideology, that there have always been two primary tendencies. One was Theodor Herzl, who was an ignorant Jew, someone who knew nothing of the history of the Jewish people, and whose sole focus was on his own self-advancement. And then there was the well-known Jewish writer Ahad Ha'am. He stated that the state itself was of no consequence to the Jewish people. What was crucial was the presence of a spiritual and moral core, because following the emancipation of the Jews, the ghettos vanished and a real danger emerged that the Jewish people would assimilate.
Ghettos are gone. We must create a new spiritual ghetto. Ahad Ha'am declared Jews a global spiritual nation, a supernation. He demanded that every Jew, wherever they lived, consider themselves a keeper of a special, higher morality and view their spiritual center as Palestine. Germany to Hitler, Italy to Mussolini, Palestine to us, demanded Ze'ev Jabotinsky's Zionist stormtroopers. It was no coincidence he was called the Jewish Hitler. He asserted that to achieve the Zionists' goals, the Jewish people had to be issued in a corrected edition.
It was the year 1940.
The fascists are now preparing for the final solution to the Jewish question. Jews across occupied Europe have been rounded up and driven into ghettos. Today, Zionists frequently speak about the millions of Jewish victims of Hitler's genocide. However, they prefer not to remember that they themselves actively collaborated with Gestapo members. Moreover, an auxiliary Jewish police force was also formed from among the Zionists themselves. "20 years after the war, the West German magazine Der Spiegel wrote, "Since both Zionists and National Socialists had elevated the concepts of race and nation to the status of a cult, it was inevitable that a common ground or bridge would emerge between them. And this bridge arose on monstrous piles of millions of Jews tortured and shot by fascists. And these are scenes from post-war newsreels. Jews who survived the Nazi genocide sailed to Palestine from war-torn Europe. Zionists assured these people that after the immense hardships they had endured, only in the Promised Land could they truly find peace. The Jews were convinced that in Palestine, a peaceful and happy life awaited them, one that would allow them to finally forget the horrors of war. It was May of 1948. British troops were in the process of leaving Palestine. In accordance with a resolution passed by the United Nations Organization, the British mandate over the territory of Palestine was officially coming to an end. It was decided that two separate states would be established there, a Jewish state and an Arab state. However, an Arab state was never actually established. It was not peace, but terror that the Zionists brought with them to Palestine. Their armed detachments carried out hundreds of attacks on Palestinian towns and villages. The leader of one of these terrorist gangs, Menachem Begin,
"In this land there is no place for both of these peoples. The only solution is a Palestine without Arabs. Not a single village, not a single tribe should remain here."
At dawn on April 10th, 1948, terrorists forcibly removed the entire population of the Arab village of Deir Yassin. They even killed the young ones. Fleeing death, hundreds of thousands of Arabs were forced to abandon their homes. Thus, the Zionists put into practice the slogan, "A land without a people, for a people without a land." The Palestinian Arab people became its victim. The first Prime Minister of Israel, one of the pioneers of Zionism, Ben-Gurion.
The borders of Israel will be determined only in the course of war.
Thus, Israeli expansionism was born. The destiny of other peoples fundamentally does not interest the leaders of Zionism. Israel is above all else.
So my understanding of Israeli policy, which you can find discussed in numerous articles, is first and foremost that Israel should not be a state just like all the others. It is a great misfortune that the path of Israel began with war. I personally asked Ben-Gurion to postpone the declaration of the state for a month to avoid war. Ben-Gurion did not do that. I told him that Ben-Gurion should be well aware that in the Talmud, that great Jewish religious commentary, it is explicitly stated that it is characteristic of every sinner that after committing one transgression, he inevitably takes on another. The very same principle applies to war. One war follows another, and soon it will be nothing but continuous warfare.
Three decades of wars fought to seize Arab lands, followed by a separate deal brokered at Camp David. U.S. President Carter, Israeli Prime Minister Begin, and Egyptian President Sadat sign a document hypocritically titled Frameworks for Peace in the Middle East. His true goal is to impose imperialist domination on the peoples of the Middle East, to perpetuate the Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands on the west bank of the Jordan River and in the Gaza Strip, as well as the Syrian Golan Heights.
What other occupied territories could you possibly mean? If you are referring to Judea, Samaria, and the Gaza Strip, then these are in fact liberated territories. They are an inherent and integral part of the land of Israel.
From whom exactly are the Zionists attempting to liberate Palestine? From the Palestinian people themselves, in those very territories which Menachem Begin once controversially labeled as liberated. The Zionists have since imposed a truly brutal and oppressive occupation regime. Consequently, not a single Palestinian individual can now feel safe or secure within their ancestral homeland. Thousands of Arabs have been driven out of their homes. Thousands of homes have been completely destroyed. Arab holy sites are being desecrated. Muslim mosques and Christian churches are burning. Zionists are trying to uproot Palestinian culture from the land they have proclaimed liberated.
I spent Christmas night in Bethlehem, occupied by the Israeli army. There were no Palestinians, none at all. On the streets of Bethlehem that night, there were soldiers, 15,000 troops for the Bethlehem area. The army was there, and tourists. But the Arab city was completely silent, motionless, and utterly without a sound. They were celebrating Christmas in their own homes. They did not wish to celebrate in the church, where the occupying and civil authorities were present. If any family member, even a teenager, throws a stone at a car or insults an Israeli soldier, their entire family is held responsible for it. This is called family punishment, and it means the destruction of their home. I have seen a house just like that. It took my father 17 whole years to build that 2-story home. This is a very large and numerous family. And a house like that they're destroying. Several hundred soldiers are arriving, and people must evacuate their homes before it's blown up with dynamite, before absolutely everything is completely destroyed. They are treated utterly inhumanely. They were arrested, their home destroyed before they were even questioned. They didn't even have a chance to say they were innocent because they were brutally abused. They were beaten, and only after all this were they found guilty. And all this happened on New Year's Eve in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is the city where Jesus Christ was born.
Zionism adopted many things from the arsenal of Nazi methods. The Nazis claim that they belong to a superior race, and Zionists assert that they are a part of a divinely chosen people, standing above all other nations. Everyone who is not a member of the Jewish people they refer to as a goy. Are you aware of what goy signifies? It refers to an individual who is not considered to be a human being. The term goy itself, by definition, means non-human. It is such an astonishing and a striking resemblance. That is precisely why I refer to Zionism as neo-Nazism in our contemporary world.
The land whose destiny it was to become the national dream and cherished aspiration for the entire Jewish people is known to us as Palestine. And the Jewish people must always believe in this divine predestination. They strove to build a mighty empire, gathering all their strength for wars and for freedom, and with God's help they were victorious in this war. Our flag rose among the flags of other nations, from the depths of hell to the very top. This is a manifestation of divine providence. The miracle of miracles in all of human history, a truly divine wonder recorded in the annals of mankind. For this reason I implore you, believe, my dearest friends, my beloved brothers and sisters. Otherwise, not all of us will be saved. Not all of us will be present here with us.
A special commemorative issue of Life magazine dedicated to the anniversary of the State of Israel. Its authors titled this photo collection, Different Faces of a Young Nation. The Jewish race is considered one of humanity's primary races, and it has successfully preserved its distinct integrity. The Jewish type has managed to maintain its purity throughout countless centuries. These profound words were uttered by one of the founding fathers of Zionism, Moses Hess. the result of Zionist ideology's dominance in Israel. Rabid chauvinism, racist psychosis, the spirit of chosenness and exclusivity. This is their true national idea. A West German newsreel shows the opening ceremony of the new building for the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. Leaders of Zionist organizations and high-ranking guests from many different countries arrived for the celebrations. The honor of the official opening was entrusted to Madame Rothschild. Her husband had generously covered a significant portion of the construction expenses.
The policy of establishing Jewish settlements in the Arab territories is simply intolerable. The Minister of Agriculture, who is now the Minister of Defense, and who was entirely consumed by his own idea, Minister Ariel Sharon, stated that an irreversible situation must be created in Palestine so that the situation would be irreversible. Arabs are being expelled from their lands, with Jewish settlements being established there.
Another ceremony, the solemn groundbreaking of a new Jewish settlement on Israeli-occupied territory. Already, more than a third of all Palestinian lands on the west bank of the Jordan River have been confiscated by Israeli authorities. According to the Zionists' plan, the remaining Palestinian territories are also to be Judaized. The city of Hebron in the occupied West Bank. Extremists from Gush Emunim terrorized the civilian population of historically Arab cities. To the members of this union of true believers, even Menachem Begin seems insufficiently resolute. Their hero, Meir Kahane, the founder of the fascist Jewish Defense League, demands the immediate annexation of the occupied territories and the expulsion of all Palestinian Arabs, every last one of them. In an effort to break the will of the Palestinian people to resist, Israeli terrorists are carrying out assassination attempts against their leaders. By the explosion of a bomb planted in his vehicle, Nablus Mayor Bassam Shaka was severely injured. The mayor of Kakana is in the center of press attention.
It is a holiday.
It was a celebration for me, nothing less than a celebration. These were people from the United Nations. Did you really think that those individuals who placed the bomb in the car were Jewish? I would like to hope so. I would like to hope. I hope they will continue the traditions of Menachem Begin, Irgun, and Lehi. So maybe Mr. Begin will remember who he once was.
Menachem Begin, the king of Israel. This is how his most fanatical admirers refer to the prime minister. His political adversaries, however, call him something quite different. A dangerous demagogue, afflicted with megalomania. Throughout Menachem Begin's entire political career, his unwavering objective has been, and continues to be, the establishment of an Israeli empire. Begin found admirers and supporters, not only within Israel, but also far beyond its borders. The Nobel Committee, based in Norway, ultimately awarded him the prestigious Peace Prize. And yet, it's worth remembering that at one time, the English police had actually offered a substantial reward for any information that could lead to the arrest of this very man. Menachem Begin is wanted. He is 38 years old. His height is 175 centimeters. He has a very thin physique. Distinguishing features: flat feet, bad teeth. Occupation: a clerk. No, not a clerk. Terrorist. Many people, including even Jews themselves, paid with their lives for Menachem Begin's political ambitions. It was his stormtroopers who blew up the King David Hotel, the very place where the British headquarters was located. A souvenir photo. The veterans of Zionist terror, after so many years, have gathered together inside a prison cell beneath the noose that no longer threatens them. Now they are national heroes of Israel. But where is Menachem Begin? He is in London, under the heavy guard of British police. He was born in 1913. His height is 175 centimeters. He's of a frail build. Special characteristics: flat feet and artificial teeth. His occupation is that of Prime Minister. The high-ranking visitor is being accompanied by official representatives. Menachem Begin has expressed a desire to inspect the imperial archives so that he might read the Balfour Declaration in its original form. Dear Lord Rothschild.
The British Jewish community is a very close-knit community. It includes about 500,000 people. Jews in this country are extremely proud, peace-loving citizens. We are convinced that we are its best citizens because we safeguard our religion, our culture, and passionate loyalty to the Jewish state.
You are a member of the English Parliament, and you speak of your loyalty to the State of Israel?
I am the elected leader of the British Jewish community. I believe it's entirely in Britain's interest to have a strong, viable State of Israel. I see no contradiction. I see absolutely no divided loyalties. Everyone in this world has more than one loyalty.
The Jewish Yearbook provides a long list of positions held by the Right Honourable Greville Jenner. The interests of a member of the English Parliament reveal a very specific pattern. He is the chairman of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. He heads the organization Labour Friends of Israel. He leads the Committee for Solidarity with Israel, is the author of 28 books, and a former director of the Zionist newspaper Jewish Chronicle. He shows a special interest in our country. Mr. Jenner is a member of the Committee for the Protection of Human Rights in the USSR and vice chairman of the Parliamentary Committee for the Liberation of Soviet Jews. This is his credo.
The freedom of a Jew in any part of the world to go to Israel, if he wishes to, that is the essence of Zionism.
Do you consider yourself a Zionist?
It really depends on your personal understanding of who a Zionist is. I consider myself a Zionist because I believe in the existence of a Jewish state, the right of Jews, wherever they live, in the United Kingdom or the Soviet Union, to make their way to that small piece of land when they want. In this context, I am a Zionist. However, if you ask whether Zionism means that you should personally relocate there and live, in this sense, I am not a Zionist because I live and serve in this country all the time.
So, Mr. Jenner believes that others should be the ones going to Israel.
And the other, and what they decide, it will be a matter for them.
New York, United States, is the most important center of international Zionism. This building on Park Avenue houses the headquarters of American Zionist organizations.
American Zionists. At one point, one of the Rothschilds defined their role as follows. A Zionist is an American Jew who gives money to an English Jew in order to send a Russian Jew to Palestine. Other American Zionists themselves do not seek the promised land. On the contrary, about 500,000 Israeli citizens have already moved to the United States. Zionists themselves call New York the largest Jewish city in the world. Almost as many Jews live there as in Israel. Gold and diamonds are bought and sold. This street is called the Golden Ghetto. Here the promised land exists not only for the turnover of dealers tied to dying factories, but also for the captains of big business. Bank Leumi is one of the largest banks in the world, originally called the Jewish Colonial Trust. It was founded by Theodor Herzl. A true national idea turned out to be highly profitable. For some, it is New York's Golden Street. For others, Antwerp's Diamond Quarter. This is the Vershina of the Diamond Triangle. These stones were mined in South African mines, cut in Tel Aviv, and brought to Antwerp.
This business doesn't like the eyes of curious outsiders. The Diamond Exchange. Its membership is exclusively for the most distinguished and chosen few. Vast fortunes are accumulated, and generous donations flow into Zionist funds. At the very pinnacle of the Diamond Triangle stands the Diamond King himself, Harry Oppenheimer, who presides over the Presidential Council. This is it, the Promised Land.
Money.
Money, money, money. That's what makes the world go round, as this farcical song proclaims. Mark, yen, dollar, pound, as long as the coins keep jingling. Money, money, money. The golden street seems like a distant mirage. In this district on the outskirts of New York live people who traded their Soviet passports for the illusions of the Promised Land. After leaving their homeland, they chose a U.S. residence permit over Israel. For them, the Promised Land turned into a ghetto on the fringes of life. Rivers of milk and shores of jelly, a land of boundless opportunities. What do they dream of now, these fervent champions of a true national idea? Is it the mark, the yen, the dollar, or the pound? But here, in the Soviet Union, Jews are living poorly, claims the sensationalist newspaper New Russian Word. They are declaring that Soviet Jews require immediate and urgent salvation. Yet another Zionist provocation at the building of the Soviet permanent mission to the United Nations. What then has brought the participants of this gathering here? Is it their concern for the well-being of Soviet Jews? No, for Zionist leaders, the fabricated problem of Soviet Jews is merely a tool in a larger anti-Soviet game. We will not allow the improvement of Soviet-American relations, boasts the speaker. We will not allow the easing of international tensions. What do Soviet Jews have to do with this? Zionists cannot accept that national discrimination and hostility have been forever eradicated in Soviet society. In our country, there's no place for any form of racism, including Zionism and anti-Semitism.
Then let the Russians up there who are listening, watching, let them understand and know.
For every Jew, two Russians. Freedom for Sharansky. Who is Sharansky? A traitor to the motherland, a spy, condemned by a Soviet court. This is the man the Zionists are making their hero. Meir Kahan, the leader of the Jewish Defense League. Whoever said that we cannot use violence to save Russian Jews, whoever claimed that violence itself is inherently wrong. We must not hesitate or ponder, but rather take action.
Strong, and when you feel it right, with the correct breathing, you squeeze off your round. Keep your arm up.
You must release the Jewish people at once, or you will be killed. Let's go home now. Let's go home.
Bombings, shellings, attacks on Soviet diplomats and members of their families, attempts by any means to complicate Soviet-American relations. The Zionist stormtroopers are trying. The turnout organizers are an anti-Soviet event. An American television news report. Israel's Prime Minister, Menachem Begin, has arrived in Washington to establish cordial relations with the Reagan administration. Let's clarify, the true objective of Begin's discussions will be far more than just cordial relations. The discussion will center on the formation of a strategic alliance aimed against the USSR and the Arab National Liberation Movement. Begin views such an alliance as the foundation for Israel's expansionist policy. Begin arrived in Washington from New York, where he had consulted with leaders of American Zionists. He anticipates that, as always, he will achieve success with the help of the pro-Israel lobby. The word lobby is an English term, and it originally means a corridor or a backstage area. However, in American political jargon, it refers to groups that exert pressure on the government, acting in the interests of specific circles. Among these, the pro-Israel lobby is widely considered to be one of the most influential.
We are just a small group. Of course, we have to convince everyone that we are right, but in most cases, it's not that difficult to convince Americans of our position. Lobbying is the word that means to approach our government with requests and demands, to ensure it pursues the correct policies. We hold personal discussions with government officials. We bring groups from our community to Washington to meet with their congressmen and senators, sending letters, correspondence, and telegrams. All of this is so that members of Congress understand what we believe in. They can either choose to ignore our views or decide to follow our advice.
The White House generally attempts not to disregard the recommendations of Zionist lobbyists. This brochure compiles statements from American presidents expressing their support for Zionism and the State of Israel. Israel represents a significant strategic advantage for the United States. It is the only stable democratic nation that we can truly rely on in the Middle East, as Ronald Reagan affirmed.
Every candidate who is campaigning for the position of president or congressman needs money. To obtain these crucial funds, he must approach influential Zionists. This is not just about the necessities of politics or an electoral campaign, but also about day-to-day business operations. It is well known that many of our investment banks are in the hands of individuals for whom the interests of Israel are paramount, who prioritize Israel's interests above all else. Then, the mass media. There are many Jews there who are either openly pro-Zionist or, by taking a neutral stance, they fall under Zionist leadership. The American people are misinformed. In the last week, we were mentioning the victims of war. It wasn't only Jews who suffered during the Nazi period. However, we hear solely of the millions of Jews and nothing of the other victims of the Nazi genocide. This naturally leads to enormous sympathy for Israel and a hostile attitude towards anyone who opposes Israel's policies. Anyone who openly advocates for justice for Palestinians, or for a change in American policy, or for an agreement with the Soviet Union on the Middle East question, will immediately be crudely accused of being a pro-communist or an anti-Semite. There exist organizations which operate as a component of the Zionist lobby, whose fundamental aim is to compel silence, to quash any opinion which they perceive as being directed against Zionist interests. This has placed Jewish people in a very difficult position, where they are often pointed at and asked directly, "Are you Israelis or are you Americans?" Of course, we play a certain role, and we are not ashamed of this role, nor do we apologize for it. We make our contribution to the formation of the foreign policy of the United States.
The storylines of American television
This is the most famous product of Israeli arms exports, the Uzi submachine gun. You once saw this very weapon in the hands of an American Secret Service agent, moments after the assassination attempt on President Reagan. The Uzi is a symbol of the military industry created in Israel. 750,000 Uzis have been sold to 40 countries worldwide.
Let's clarify this point. The buyers of Israeli weapons became the most reactionary regimes in the entire world: South Africa, Chile, El Salvador, and South Korea. This weapon is being used to suppress the national liberation struggle of the people in these countries.
During our discussion about the strategic situation in the Middle East, naturally we found a great deal in common. Friends and partners in these peaceful times, we share a resolute determination to confront all those forces that seek to threaten the freedom, the sovereignty, and the very peace of our nations. The United States of America will remain firmly committed to its solemn pledge to ensuring the security and prosperity of Israel. We have worked closely with you and with other friends throughout the region to effectively counter Soviet aggression and to enhance the overall security of all the nations in this region.
I do not say goodbye, Mr. President. Jerusalem.
Begin sees in Reagan a completely natural ally with whom he can conclude a strategic agreement against the Soviet Union, and there is no doubt that strategic cooperation between Israel and the United States must definitely be built on an anti-Soviet basis. It reflects an anti-Soviet policy. In my opinion, such a policy on the part of Israel can only be characterized as sheer madness. It is complete and utter insanity. I don't understand why Israel would provoke a military conflict with the Soviet Union. This is absolute idiocy. It has no justification whatsoever. I believe, however, that Begin hopes by signing this agreement to receive significant assistance from the United States, perhaps a little more money, greater economic support, and much broader military cooperation. And I think that Begin is unforgivably sacrificing the very future of Israel. He is placing Israel's very existence in grave peril by pursuing a policy that is absolutely unjustified and completely unnecessary.
Tens of billions of dollars, such a huge amount was received by Israel from the United States. With this money, the Israeli military machine was created, which clearly does not match the country's economic and human potential. The most militarized country in the world, that's what they call Israel. Not the army for the state, but the state for the army. The cult of militarism, the cult of aggression permeates Israeli society. Force, the iron fist, is the way to solve all problems, Zionists believe. Only in this way can great Israel be created. Beirut, autumn of 1981. There was a little more than half a year left until the next Israeli invasion of Lebanon. They came early in the morning when everyone was at home. When they had just started clearing the ruins, a second wave of Israeli bombers appeared. That's when the most people died. Incredibly, people live amidst this horror, the Lebanese, whose only misfortune is that their country is in the area of strategic interest for the creators of Greater Israel. This woman's daughter was seriously injured. Her wedding was supposed to take place the next day. Five years ago, refugees first appeared on this road in southern Lebanon. They were Palestinians, expelled from their homeland by the Zionists. They hoped to find temporary refuge in a neighboring country. They thought they would soon return to Palestine.
You ask me why I stayed here. All my family and loved ones died here. The only thing left for me is to wait for my death here. Hundreds of families lived here. Now it's only me. Where do I go now? After all, we have lived here for over 30 years. If you move to Saida, they kill there. To Nabatea, they kill there too. They kill here. They bomb everywhere. They shoot everywhere. Isn't it better to be near your family and die here? We wish we could return to Palestine, not Israel. Oh God, what should we do?
Rashidia Camp. In June of the year 1982, it was barbarically destroyed by Israeli tanks. 20,000 Palestinians lived here. This camp was located just 5 kilometers from their homeland. It was a symbol of the perseverance and courage of the Palestinian people. Israeli planes bombed it over 500 times. Artillery shelled it almost daily, and ships and paratroopers attacked it from the sea. Maybe it was these guys who fought their last battle here in June 1982. Here there were no military bases. Here there were many children. There were no Palestinian combat units here. There were children here. There were women here. There were old people here. Old people who remembered Palestine, so close and yet so distant. Israeli tanks were able to enter the outskirts only when not a single defender of the camp remained alive there. British newsreel Viz News. June 6, 1982. Thus began a new bloody aggression by the Zionists, the result of the Camp David policy and the American-Israeli strategic alliance. Palestinian and Lebanese patriots are offering heroic resistance. The aggressor is suffering significant losses. However, the forces are far too unequal. Hordes of Israeli barbarians, armed with the most modern American weapons, have descended upon peaceful Lebanese cities and villages and upon the Palestinian camps. Their goal is the final solution of the Palestinian question and the transformation of Lebanon into an Israeli puppet. Hundreds of thousands of people have once again become refugees. They tried to find shelter in West. From all sides, the Lebanese capital is surrounded by Israeli troops. The Zionists are methodically and mercilessly destroying residential neighborhoods, using the most barbaric weapons, phosphorus shells, cluster bombs, poisonous substances. Thousands of civilians are dying. In this way, the Zionists are trying to deprive an entire people of the right to live. This is genocide, a crime against peace and humanity.
No peace, no solution.
There can be no peace, no settlement, no stability.
The Palestinian rights.
If one tries to bypass Palestinian rights, including the right to establish their own independent state.
For almost 3 months, West Beirut was defended by the National Patriotic Forces of Lebanon and Palestinian units. The entire world admired their courage and resilience. They did not lay down their arms before the aggressors. The Palestinians are leaving, not defeated. They are evacuating the Lebanese capital to protect its peaceful residents from the ongoing bloodshed. Philip Habib, an American diplomat acting on behalf of President Reagan, guaranteed the security of Beirut's population. The true price of the American peacekeepers' guarantee was soon made clear to the entire world. In the Palestinian refugee camps of Sabra and Shatila, Zionists carried out a massacre unprecedented in its brutality. Never before has the brutal, man-hating, anti-human essence of Zionism been so clearly and openly laid bare. Let's remember, after all, this has already happened. This is the absolute final decision. Superhumans, the superior race. Concentration camps. The Greater Israel. The Zionist crimes committed in Lebanon have provoked outrage among all honest people across our planet. The peoples of the world angrily condemn the bloody atrocities of the Israeli aggressors. These tragic events once again demonstrated the need for a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in the Middle East. The Soviet Union's proposed Middle East settlement program is gaining growing support from the international community. In Israel itself, democratic forces, led by the Communist Party, are opposing the aggression in Lebanon.
We demand an end to the war, an end to the bloodshed, because we don't believe in this war. We don't believe the Palestinian problem can be solved by military means.
The The Israeli communists are the most consistent fighters against the growing threat of fascism within the country. Sober-minded Israelis recognize that the policies of the Zionist leadership are profoundly hostile to the interests of the Israeli people and call into question the very existence of the State of Israel. Where is Israel actually going? A former general and currently one of the active participants in the anti-war movement, Madi Pele.
I believe that the main problem Israel is currently facing is the very future of Israel itself, which entirely depends on whether it will be possible to achieve peace. If we do not have peace, I seriously doubt that we will have a future.
The next regular session of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset,
אם תפרוץ מלחמה, הנה פה האשמים. אני רוצה לשאול, האם מותר לדבר בכנסת הזאת מבלי שיפריעו?
Is it possible to speak in this Knesset without ever being interrupted?
אני עברתי על הסטנוגרמה 2 דקות לא יכולתי לדבר אתמול מבלי שיפריעו לי.
And I don't want to listen to you at all.
Opposition leader Shimon Peres is the head of the Labor Party, which had been in power for the first 30 years of Israel's existence.
Menachem Begin is the leader of the Likud political bloc. He once led the opposition, but now Menachem Begin is at the helm of the government.
There are no fundamental differences between them, of course. They share a common platform, all of them.
Il est impossible de distinguer dans les sentiments et dans l'émotion des Juifs.
It is truly impossible to fully comprehend the intricate feelings and deep emotions of the Jewish people, or their profound attachments. The entire form and very essence of the Jewish nation lies in the fact that each person offers support to another, sharing their friendship and material possessions.
Et son intérêt.
Therefore, among the Jewish people, there are no distinctions whatsoever.
C'est éventuellement des natures différentes, mais il n'y a pas de degrés différents.
Mr. Barron asserts that there are no distinctions among Jewish people and consequently no social classes and certainly no class struggle. These Israeli Jews who are protesting against social and ethnic discrimination would hardly agree with him. Jews in Israel are divided in so many ways, the poor and the wealthy, the pure and the impure, Ashkenazi, Sabra and Sephardi, and even first and second class citizens.
Alors que maintenant, quand je vais en Israël, ce qui me frappe... Oh, what I see now in Israel and what strikes me is a huge gap, a huge social divide between the wealthiest, the richest people, and the poorest. In 1981, significantly more people left Israel than entered. So why exactly are Israelis choosing to leave the State of Israel? For a variety of different reasons. Primarily, I believe it's due to pressing economic circumstances. Do you realize that the inflation rate in Israel is currently 100, even 200%? That's an absolutely staggering and unsustainable figure. People simply cannot continue to live under such conditions. Furthermore, Israelis are utterly exhausted from living in a constant state of war for the past 3 decades. They don't feel safe. They know that their children could be sent to war tomorrow or the day after, and they might be killed. And so many families simply decide to live in peace in some country where they don't risk dying. I think the Israelis are mistaken in believing that the annexation will resolve everything. This situation is very dangerous when the policy of a state, especially such a small one, is based on illusions.
These illusions, you see, are born directly from the myths of Zionist propaganda. At one point, Zionist theoreticians boldly claimed that a people chosen by God, a supposedly superior race, would be able to create a model state, an example for the entire world to follow. However, today, Israel is being torn apart by acute and profound social, political, and deeply rooted ethnic conflicts and divisions. fanatically religious Jews live in this area of Jerusalem. They believe that Judaism and Zionism are diametrically opposed. They do not accept the current Israel. They oppose Zionism, oppose Zionist practices. Those who inflict violence upon other nations will sooner or later begin to inflict it upon their own. A true national idea. In the year 1975, the General Assembly of the United Nations officially condemned Zionism, identifying it as a form of racism. The judgment of history is inescapable. Humanity remembers the words that were pronounced at the Nuremberg trials. These individuals are the living symbols of racial hatred, of terror and violence, of the arrogance and cruelty that are born of unchecked power. It is a symbol of brutal nationalism and militarism, of intrigues and provocation.